Welcome back to Southpaw Picks, and you're here with your host Charles. And this is the UFC 271 post-fight and betting recap show. And I'm gonna go through the whole entire card, give you my reaction to the end results, and go over our betting slips. Now, we went 11-3 this week, and these are the type of weeks where I aim to hit absolute dominance, right? 11-3. We were coming off a couple weeks in a row. We were just batting over 60%. So to have a week like this really stretch us out. We had a great units made this weekend as well, and to continue our profitability into 2022. A lot of these cappers online, the ones that are transparent, they're in the minus real early in 2022. Stay focused, stay locked in on this channel, and you too are going to be up units in UFC fights, when betting UFC fights. So we're going to kick it off, and we're going to start from the main event. The reason we're here. Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker 2. Definitely not as exciting as the first matchup. A little bit lackluster. But one of those situations where you get two crafty strikers that are very patient, very methodical in there. A lot of feints going on, a lot of setups, a lot of traps. So, most guys weren't, falling into each other's traps. They were being very safe, very cautious, and it was a point fighting match. Now, I thought it was while I was watching it, I thought it was clearly 4-1 Izzy. Maybe you want to give it 3-2 in favor of Izzy, but to the people that had Rob Whittaker, I just don't see your case in point. I thought Israel won the first 3 rounds going away, in my opinion. Some of the takedown attempts from Robert Whittaker, were very interesting. He had some success there. He had success later as the fight, started to progress. He had a little bit more success. Now, kind of reminds me of a similar situation with the Kamaru Usman and the Colby Covington fight that happened earlier earlier at the end of 2021. Seeing these challengers kind of start really slow and allowing the champions to establish that first round. And then even though towards the end of the fight, they're starting to make it competitive and maybe stealing some rounds, the damage has been done early. I mean, if you're going to try and take the belt from the champ, you got to go after them. You can't stay and be patient and let the champ dictate the rounds because, I don't really know what goes into the judging in these certain aspects. But, as a spectator, you got to come take it from the champion. You can't sit back there and have a competitive striking match. But overall, great title defense for Israel Adesanya. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight either Jared Cannonier or Sean Strickland in the future. Don't really think Jared Cannonier will threaten him in the same aspect as Robert Whittaker, but it's a good fight. I do think Sean Strickland's a little bit more of an interesting test. But either way, Israel's got his championship defense timeline looking pretty clear as far as who's next. Moving on down here, we get Tai Tuivasa with the second round KO on Derek Lewis. Was that a minute 40 into the second round? What a great fight, right? In Houston, it sucks to see Derek Lewis get finished back-to-back in Houston, but Tai Tuivasa was a dog in there. He went through some early adversity, was right up against the cage, getting a whole bunch of shots to his face, to the back of his head, and he stood up to it. He didn't go down, and Derek Lewis is probably used to seeing a lot of guys go down. That toughness in Tai Tuivasa, and he pretty much just out-toughed Derek Lewis in there, being the younger, the fresher, and the more willing to fight through the fire. And that elbow against the cage, face planting Derek Lewis, incredible. And we obviously, as in me, I predicted Tai Tuivasa to get the W here. Something I was really going back and forth with, but then I really landed on the fact that we are going to see that shoey, guaranteed, Tai Tuivasa by KO. Now, this isn't so much as Tai Tuivasa belongs now in the top 5, more so than Derek Lewis shouldn't be in the top 5. Top 10, he's a very old school heavyweight, I'd like to see him fight. I'd like to see Derek Lewis fight Jairzinho. Put those both guys in there, both with knockout power, and both don't like to throw too much volume. So it might not be the best fight, but then it might turn out to be an exciting fight while it lasts. Tai Tuivasa, who you really going to give him in the top 5? And you give him Cyril Gahn? That's probably what they're going to do. Don't like that matchup for Tai. I think Cyril Gahn pick him apart, but he continues his win streak. and Tai Tuivasa is doing great in the heavyweight division. Moving on down here, we got Jared Cannonier finishing Derek Brunson with a KO, elbows to the ground. This was nasty to witness. I thought it was late stoppage. Great on the coaches for throwing in the towel. Derek Brunson was out on the mat and took 3 brutal elbows before it was over. And this fight went exactly how I planned. Derek Brunson would have some early success with the wrestling, but eventually, you know, the reaction of the crowd to the shots, the panic shooting, he was eventually gonna just gas himself out and get KO'd. And this fight went according to plan from start to finish. And it's a scenario like this where you see wrestlers who have bad gas tanks. If you allow them to, you know, overexert, they get really vulnerable on their feet and it can be liable to get finished. Derek Brunson's win streak comes to an end. I love Jared Cannonier in this spot just based on all the losses he's had has been to top tier opponents. If you think Israel is as great as he is and you think Robert Whittaker was competitive with him, and then you look at all the other guys, Cannonier's lost to Jan Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira, like these guys are not scrubs, top of the line fighters. And I felt he was the better fighter in this spot. Despite the size advantage for Brunson, I felt Cannonier was the better fighter in this spot. Moving on down, Renato Moicano and Alexander Hernandez. Moicano gets to finish in the second round with a rear naked choke. And, you know, it was fairly competitive early. I had Moicano as well, and was getting a little nervous, especially when in the early exchanges. But I did trust that Moicano had more ways to win. I did like his straight shots. I did like his leg kicks. I did like his ability to get to the mat and dominate the grappling, which, you know, Alex Hernandez did do a good job in some spots. And I also felt Moicano was just big in there. And another guy, too, when you look back and you got to really look at the level of competition people have gone through. You know, Moicano's got a win over Calvin Kattar. Like, as of today, 2022, how big of a win is that? And it's not that long ago. And it was a clear unanimous decision victory. You know, Moicano's an interesting guy. You know, he wonder if he might have one of those Charles Oliveira type careers where you see the ups and downs, but eventually he's going to hit his stride because he's dangerous. He's got the hands. The durability was questionable at 145, but at 155, he's taking shots pretty good. Overall, great performance, and that's another one we get in the bag. And at this point, we're dominating the main card. Now, I regret this pick, and we could have had an even better prediction record because the obvious choice to me was Bobby Green. And in my analysis of this fight, I said, man, I feel like it's going to be close. And I'm a little bit worried that I should take the dog shot in here in case it's close. You get a split decision. You're going to want to have this dog money. But it wasn't close at all. Bobby Green looked the best he's looked, and he's continuously to get better fight to fight to fight. He's such a treat to watch. The whole arena was on his side cheering, Bobby, Bobby. And, man, slick with the jab, popping in and out, right hands, left hands, switch stances. The Philly shoulder roll, just everything catching him on the shoulder and nothing really connecting flush. Nasrat started to really get a little bit of success towards the end of the round, starting to land big shots, but it just didn't seem like anything was hurting Bobby too much, and he was able to just pick him apart. Nasrat had the high guard up, and Bobby Green had his guard down, so he was able to pop on the outside and just really rack up the strike count, and a wonderful win for Bobby Green. Nasrat, you know, what's next for him is hard to know, but big shout out to Bobby Green. You know, 35 years old, and it seems like he's getting better. He's hanging in there with top-tier talent. Got to give him his credit. I think they're going to give him a ranked opponent next. Now, that concludes the main card, and we go 4 out of 5 on the main card, right? Awesome. Moving on down, we got Andrei Arlovski versus Jared Bandera. I don't believe this should have been a split decision, but it was. I thought Andrei Arlovski did a great job with his veteran savvy, stand on his bike, moving laterally, jumping in every opportunity he had to land a couple shots, right hands and left hands. I felt Andrei Arlovski really was just showing an ability to in where they are in skill level, right? Even though Jared Bandera was a bigger guy, and a lot of people liked him as dogs this week. That's what I'm talking about. A lot of I'm part of that community too. I like to listen to a lot of guys opinions, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I do make my own opinions, and people that were on Bandera, to me, it was disrespectful. It's like, okay, Andrei Arlovski is 43, the chin, but he's won 4 out of his last 5. He's reinventing himself. If you're beating Arlovski, you're a guy that's a top tier heavyweight, really and truly. No, he doesn't really take losses to guys that are scrubs, and if so, it's pretty controversial. It's very close, right? Like that one with the Gusa Sakai. Andrei Arlovski's doing a great job in his later career in his 43, standing on his bike, being very defensive, great counters, and he was a lot faster than the younger guy here. Andrei Arlovski keeps it going, and what is he now, 33-20? He might fix up that record by when it's all said and done. But that was a split decision. Totally didn't agree with that. Should have been unanimous. Just like this one. Moving on down, we had Casey O'Neill versus Roxanne Modafferi. You know Casey O'Neill, that's my girl. Very, very strong pressure fighter. Love her grappling. She didn't use any of the grappling in this fight, just kept it on the feet. Obviously felt she had the strength advantage, the power advantage, and the technique. And you know what? She was getting hit a lot with Roxanne, but I feel like she was willing to engage in this type of fight. She probably wasn't threatened by the power of Roxanne. And that's the only explanation I could have for why it is that she didn't really implement all facets of her game. But Casey O'Neill did a pretty good job as far as sticking the jab and countering over the top, really hurting Roxanne. And they both got beat up and had a pretty competitive fight overall. But I think it was one of those situations where they were just here to entertain the crowd. You know, Casey O'Neill just started screaming towards the end of the fight, you know, really on a rush for just how exciting the fight was. And I thought, you know, debatably, I thought they could have given that the fight of the night. You know, obviously, skill level wise, you know, there's way more exciting things going on. But as far as competitiveness and, you know, strikes landed, I thought that was an excellent fight for both fighters in that spot. But Casey O'Neill continues on her undefeated streak. These flyweights are looking dangerous. I don't know. I think Casey O'Neill versus Macy Barber is the fight to make. I said we go with that. Do not give Casey O'Neill to Caitlin Chukagian. I can see that going bad. Moving on down, Kyler the Matrix Phillips coming back and looking just as phenomenal as he's always been. That last fight, you see it's a loss. Very controversial. Maybe a draw, maybe he wins. I don't see how you gave it to Paiva in that spot. This guy is so talented, so fast, so crisp. He does throw too much spinning attacks, and it leaves him so susceptible to tiring himself out or, you know, getting put in an opportunity, you know, putting in a bad position and letting someone have an opportunity on him they don't need. But then again, I guess because of his high level in jiu-jitsu, he's just not afraid to be brought to the ground. So if you catch his kick or take him to the ground, he's like willing to play that game, and you saw it today. I mean, you saw it that night, right, when he got the triangle armbar. It was phenomenal. His executions, he's a high-level black belt. He's been doing it for years, and with the reach and the boxing and the movement, Kyler Phillips is so exciting to watch. He's such a great prospect. And the only thing that worries me as far as his game goes is the big actions, right, as DC says, just the spinning stuff, you know, it's just not using great energy management. But even with that being said, he's getting these finishes late in some of these fights. He's still managing to have enough gas to push through. But you wonder if he's going to get to a point where the level is really, really high and someone's going to make him pay for some of those mistakes. Only 12 fights in his career, but man, one of the most exciting bantamweights, you know, in the world right now. And obviously another situation, but these guys are both minus Casey O'Neill and Kyler Phillips, both coming on like minus 500 favorites. So you expect them to get the job done in that spot. Now moving on down, we had a light heavyweight bout, Carlos Ulberg versus Fabio Charon. Very similar to, no, take that back. Not similar to the main event, but one of those situations where Fabio wasn't trying to engage at all. He kind of let Carlos Ulberg just pick him apart. Very one-way traffic type of fight. You know, he did drop him with a right hand in the first round, but it was the first round after completely getting destroyed and picked apart on the outside. I felt Carlos, we didn't get to see how good he is, honestly. He got that one spot where he took the takedown, but the guy picked him up, you know, got up pretty fast, so you didn't get to see no top control. You know, his head was up there. I feel like someone who was really swinging leather and trying to connect on his chin, I feel like Carlos Ulberg left a lot of holes. So if you're you know, devising a game plan for Ulberg, I think you see all those holes. And but overall, 15 minutes went down. Good ring time, to get his feet wet after gassing out in his last fight. But like I said in the prediction video prior to this, 141 strikes in 10 minutes, right? In this fight, he probably didn't even throw 140 strikes. It was that type of calm and relaxed. So we don't really know how much better Carlos Ulberg got. But from this point to his next fight, I do assume he's going to make more and more improvements. And we'll just see how it goes. The right matchup available to me, we could fade Carlos Ulberg. Moving on down with a bantamweight scrap, Ronnie Lawrence and Mana Martinez. Ronnie Lawrence is an animal. Didn't like the line being so high at minus 300, but in the first 2 rounds, you're like, yeah, I understand. He definitely deserves that tag. Gets caught late in the third, and that's part of the inexperience here that makes you worried when you pick some of these guys. He's very fortunate that he was able to have the wherewithal. Well, he's very skilled. Not even saying fortunate. He's very skilled that when he got hurt, he was able to grab a leg, engage into the wrestling transitions, and avoid getting stopped. But in that third round, it got rocky, man. He was seconds away from being finished. Maybe one more shot from Mana Martinez, and we would have had a huge comeback victory. But very similar to the Carlos Ulberg fight, very one-sided as far as the competitiveness of the fight was. And at least Mana Martinez, though, had a big spot in the third round. But moving on down, we have another unanimous decision victory for Jacob Malkoun. And, I went back and forth with this fight. I was even talking with a friend of mine who liked AJ Dobson. I just couldn't get over what Malkoun did to Abdul Razak Al-Hassan. I just couldn't get over, the consistency in the takedowns, the attempts. He was a wrestler that really didn't gas out. And you know what? As much as he's not showing it very clearly, in the little bit of tape we've seen on Jacob Malkoun, his hands are pretty crisp. His jab is nice. His hooks are nice. He gets in close, gets the single leg, gets you down. We saw him go for a couple double legs today. He was up against an athletic dude in AJ Dobson who was able to spread his legs and kind of keep himself on the ground just based on the length. But, you give Malkoun a guy who's not that long. I mean, how are you going to stop this guy? He got through that first round loss to Philip Haas, on his debut. Big moment. And he's gone up against 2 very athletic, very explosive fighters, and he's tamed them. He's really good with the grappling. Jacob Malkoun came in as a dog here, and I had him on my Hail Mary parlays, but nothing specific. I'm very disappointed in myself for not hammering this line, but it was the unknown of AJ Dobson that we were worried about. But great victory for Jacob Malkoun. He's legit. I'm going to go ahead and say it. He's legit. Look out for this guy. He's only going to get better. What is this, 6-1 now? He's only going to get better. Moving on down to a bantamweight scrap. Whew, this one killed the early free parlays I gave to you guys. And that's when I'll show you when I had to replace Sergey Morzgov's, comeback loss, to Andrade. I was feeling really good about Sergey. He was someone that was very confident in. That first round felt good. As a backer of Morzgov, I felt good. It was trending in the right direction. I actually felt we could have had the finish if he just pushed a little bit in the first round. And to see Douglas Andrade just come back with the body head combination, and Sergey never recovered from that initial shot in that second round, right? He never recovered. Every other shot Andrade was landing at that point was just shaking him up. And this is a fight we get wrong here. And unfortunately so, we get this fight wrong. And Andrade comes as a plus 200 dog. Morzgov, this bantamweight division is so competitive, and losses in this division set you back miles when it comes to climbing the ladder. So you just wonder what's going to happen for this younger fighter and for this older guy now. I mean, 2 back-to-back finishes. Andrade, maybe he earns himself a big fight, right? Only losses really notably to like Peter Yan. He's an excellent fighter, and Lerone Murphy, but up at featherweight, very good fighter. And we get that one wrong. We went with Sergey, and Andrade gets to finish. Moving on down to the welterweight bout between Jeremiah Wells and Blood Diamond. This is the second time I bet against Jeremiah Wells, but which is funny because the first fight I thought Warlley Alvarez had him. Watched the fight, I said, man, this guy's dangerous. I'm going to bet on him in his next fight. I even messaged him on Instagram, and he even liked the comment when I made that comment. And I'm like, I'm not betting against this guy. I said going into my betting recap, I said I'm completely going to fall victim right here to the hype. Blood Diamond is very, very hyped by Israel and the whole camp, and, you know, highly credentialed kickboxer. He could get it done. I said, you know what? Plus 200 tag. I'm going to take the shot on Blood Diamond here. What could go wrong? Fight kind of starts out strange. Jeremiah gets loses his footing, and then Blood Diamond rushes in, and then that's pretty much it. That was the one mistake he made, rushing in, letting Jeremiah get a hold of him. And you know what? That was so early in the fight that he was engaged in the grappling. I got to give Blood Diamond the credit. He did fight it as much as he could. That Jeremiah Wells guy is a monster. And now we're here again. I didn't know what Blood Diamond was all about, and now I still don't know what Blood Diamond's all about. He threw one punch. You know, I really don't know what Blood Diamond's all about. Could I bet him in the next matchup? It would be very interesting if he has a grappler. But you did see, like, Israel, he had a pretty good grappling defense against the cage. He was able to, you know, avoid submissions as long as he could. But Jeremiah Wells ends up getting the choke, and Diamond doesn't tap out and gets put to sleep. But very, very, very exciting fight as long as it lasted, right? But for the whole round, he was engaged in getting hit and brutalized by Jeremiah that whole 5 minutes. Maybe if he makes it to the second round, things are different, but we didn't get that. And great win for Jeremiah Wells. Dangerous, dangerous fighter in the welterweight division. Kind of undersized, but he's got power and he's got grappling. Moving on down to the first fight of the night, we know William Knight with the historic weight miss. That didn't matter to me. I thought Maxim Grishin was the pick here. 40-fight veteran. 31 wins, now 32 wins against a beefy, you know, not that good of a fighter, more of an athlete. We've seen this before. When William Knight is outsized to these big, longer fighters, they just have their way with him. He's really so massive in these arms. He's not throwing jabs. He's really throwing these haymakers. And someone like Maxim Grishin, who has such a competitive fight with a kickboxer and Dustin Jacoby, you got to know he's going to have that type of advantage. You know, maybe a William Knight, you know, went to the ground more. Maybe the fight could have ended differently, but it was a 15-minute kickboxing match for the most part, and Maxim Grishin was going to win that all day. Overall, that is it for my reaction to the card. We go 11-3, phenomenal. Our 2 free parlays for the recap shows, for the post weigh-in shows, they don't hit. But I do reparlay my predictions after the Sergey Morzgov upset, and I hit a 1 unit to pay out 8 units, and that put me well into the green and continuing our positive trend for the year 2022. Compare me to these other cappers online. It's not close. We're up, they're down, and it's a long year. But I'm telling you, with the way we put our slips together, my predictions overall, this is the winning side. Thank you for returning back to Southpaw Picks if you're watching this, and catch you guys later in the next prediction video. We got a nice main event coming up. They switched it on us, but Johnny Walker versus Jamal Hill, now a 5-round fight. We'll see how that goes. Very interesting. Talk to you guys later.